Continue with the supply side of the firm, and this time we want to talk about cost functions, because as I said at the beginning, the cost of production drives the supply decisions and the pricing. So let's talk about cost. We said that output dependent on variable input and fixed inputs. Therefore, we should have variable cost and fixed cost in any production decisions, right? So if this is production and these are costs, fixed cost, since is there whether we produce or nothing, so it is not changed by the level of production, so fixed cost, total fixed cost remains the same, let's say $5 million. You have to have as an upfront. Variable cost, on the other hand, will change with the production. If you don't use any variable input, you don't produce anything, and therefore you don't incur any cost. As you produce more, the cost of your variable portion of production will rise, eventually stabilize, and then shoots up. So this is total variable cost. Why the shape of the total variable cost looks like this? Well, as you expand production, you kind of figure out how things work, and therefore your cost structure rises, but at the following rate. Along this stretch, your cost structure is relatively stable. You expand production, but the cost doesn't rise as much. And beyond this level of production, then the variable cost shoots up. Overtimes, three-shift operations, full-time maintenance departments, etc., etc. So you're pushing to the limits of your capacity, and your resources are stretched, and therefore the cost of your variable portion of the production will shoot up. And of course, total cost structure is the sum of these two. So you take this portion and add it to that, and then therefore your total cost will have that shape. Now, this is really not as much as interesting as the average cost. So if I look at the cost in average costs, the average fixed cost, this is the total fixed cost, but if you divide by the number of units, it falls. So this average fixed cost to a smaller and smaller fraction of your overall cost structure. Average variable cost first declines, and then you achieve some level of efficiency around this level, and then shoots up. This is average variable cost. And your marginal cost, as long as average cost is falling, marginal must be below it. At some point, when marginal cost begins to creep up faster and exceeds the average cost, then it pulls the average with it, and therefore this is always a minimum point. Marginal cost. Marginal cost always hits the average cost at its minimum, average variable cost at its minimum, because as long as the margin is below average, average is falling. Once the margin exceeds the average, then it pulls the average up with it. So keep that in mind, and we'll come back to it.